Welcome to the Tipping Point Show. I'm Jimmy Evans. I'm honored today to have joining me on the show former Minnesota Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. She currently serves as the Dean of the Robertson School of Government at Regent University. Michele is a champion for the nation of Israel, and she is joining me today to talk about what's happening in Israel right now and also to talk about a major issue with the World Health Organization. Michele, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Jimmy. It's always great to be with you.
Well, you too. And, you're a champion for Israel. I see you on the ads for, the Christians and Jews, and what a wonderful organization that is. But you lived over there. I mean, you lived in a kibbutz. Is that right?
Yeah. I did, yes. I graduated from high school, and the next day I went to live and work at Kibbutz Be'eri in Beersheba. And a lot of your viewers have seen the tragedy. That it was one of the first kibbutzes that the terrorists hit. And there's video footage of them coming up with their AK-47s and just mowing people down in cars. And it's terrible. Many hostages are from Kibbutz Be'eri. It's one of the oldest. The kibbutz was started actually just before Israel, the modern Jewish state, declared their nationhood. So it's been in operation over 75 years. It's about 1,000 people. They were known for their agriculture products. They were also known for their printing industry. And when I went to work as the lowest level person there was. I was picking weeds in a cotton field and working in the dining room. So, but it taught me so much. It's when I really understood that Israel is home for all believers. Yeah. Israel is home. And this identification that we have with Israel that God talks about in the Bible, it comes so real when you go there. And so I'm just grateful to have had that chance so many years ago in the early 1970s to live there. And then I returned in 2016 and I was in the dining room with little children. I went into their classroom. I spent time with them. And I've just been weeping over those children. They would have been about 12 or 13 years old now. And so I wondered how many of them have been impacted. And so it's very personal for me.
Oh, that's just shocking. So when you lived there, Michele, was the Gaza in the hands of Israel or in the hands of the Palestinians?
Well, good question. Gaza has been in the hands of Israel really since the modern Jewish state for 75 years. They have had effective control over that region. There were various skirmishes, but when I was there in 74, we would take an old school bus and just drive a couple miles to get to the Mediterranean Sea to body surf in the water. And so the Palestinians were right there, and we would just easily have access, just drive over, and the people didn't bother us. The people were sweet. We talked to the local people. But then Islamic supremacist elements came in, Hamas, and they kept whipping people up into this hatred of Jew frenzy to the point where Israel was forced to erect a fence and then a wall just to protect themselves. It wasn't from incursions from Jews going into Gaza. It was just the opposite. It was from rockets and incursions and knife attacks and gun attacks coming from Islamic supremacists into Israel. So it just kept growing to the point when 2005, Israeli citizens were actually tired of sacrificing their sons and daughters to try and keep the peace in Gaza. And so they thought, let's just give them the land. And that's what Israel did in 2005. They gave the land over to Gaza. And instead of taking the best real estate in the Arab world and make something out of it, they really prostituted themselves to the Iranians, and they gave that land as a staging ground for terror from Iran against the Jewish people. And we saw this on October 7th, this act of genocide, which is the foreign policy of Iran. Iran's foreign policy is the complete genocide and annihilation of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. That's it. And their proxies live in Gaza, and their proxies live in southern Lebanon and in Syria, doing their bidding and doing their work. And that's where the world is now. We have moral clarity. We see good and evil. We see right and wrong. And at this point, there is no question this is an unprovoked terror attack meant to bring about the genocide of the Jewish people. And so that's really the world's question. Will we stand with the innocent people of Israel, or will we stand with the terrorists who aren't done? This was stage one for them. They won't be done until they kill every Jew and move them out of Israel. So that's their goal. That's where they want to go. So the United States needs to get this right. And I'm very upset about what I've seen coming out of the Biden administration, because the Biden administration, with Secretary of State Blinken, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, and President Biden are making all the wrong moves and sending all the wrong signals. They're embracing Qatar, which is a foreign terrorist supporter, and Qatar is the host to Hamas. All of these very wealthy heads of Hamas, they've been made wealthy by us, as a matter of fact. They live in Qatar. That's where they planned this battle, was in Qatar. And instead, our nation is embracing Qatar, and we're pushing Netanyahu right now to hold back and not eradicate Hamas out of Gaza, because Gaza is Hamas. Hamas is Gaza. And Qatar is the financer for all of this.
Well, you know, the Biden administration is calling for the creation of a Palestinian state. And so you were talking about making all the wrong moves. And they would be forced to give up East Jerusalem and the West Bank, you know, in addition to already giving up Gaza. And so that would be, from a foreign policy perspective, Michelle, just kind of give your perspective on what would happen if, because ultimately we know the end of the story, and that is there's going to be Armageddon, and they're going to march against Israel to try to force them out of the land. But from a foreign policy perspective, just give your opinion, like, what do you think is going to happen in the weeks and months to come related to the pressure on Israel to give up more land?
Well, the United States continues the pressure that they're putting on Israel right now, and that's don't go in, don't take out Hamas. If Benjamin Netanyahu and the unity government agree to that, that will bring about the demise of Israel. Because if the pressure goes on for Judea and Samaria to be handed over in some sort of a state, it would be a terror state. It would be the Islamic State. That's what we're seeing in Gaza. That's the Islamic State in Gaza. We would see the same thing in Judea, Samaria, what they call the West Bank. It'd be a squeeze motion, because on the west side you've got Gaza. On the east side, you have Judea, Samaria. That's a squeeze with that little bit of the 1947 boundaries that would be left for Israel. It'd be a suicide pact. Israel knows they could never agree to this. But again, Jimmy, it's important that your viewers understand this. Who did Joe Biden have in charge of his Middle East policy? Who did he have in charge of his Israel policy? It was Robert Malley. Robert Malley is a pro-Iranian advocate and has been forever, and a big anti-Semite. That's who is in charge of the policy. It came to light that he was passing classified information to the Iranians, the guy who's in charge in the Biden White House. And even worse, he put pro-Iranian individuals, actual Iranians, in positions of decision-making at our U.S. State Department. The question is, are these people still in these positions? Are they still calling the shots? That's who is running U.S. policy. Malley lost his position because it came out that he actually was involved in this transfer of classified information. But then we found out it was even worse, that he put pro-Iranian individuals calling the shots in our U.S. State Department. That's how corrupt our position is. And this is what we know biblically that you have shared so beautifully, Jimmy, to your audience. It's this. When nations and individuals curse Israel, the nations and individuals are cursed.
That's right.
When we bless Israel's nations and individuals, we are blessed. Maybe in part, the reason the United States is suffering so much right now is because of the cursing that's come out from our official policy toward Israel.
Yeah.
And so we should never impress upon the Israelis that they have to stand by. It sounds good, quote, humanitarian assistance, whether it's from the UN or the US or the EU. The EU just announced this morning they're the biggest funder of the Palestinians. They announced this morning that they're going to triple their humanitarian relief. Okay, sounds great. But guess what happens? Egypt is saying, no way, we're not letting the Palestinians out of Gaza. They're agreeing with Hamas. Jordan says, no way, we're not taking any of these refugees.
Right.
If no one takes these refugees, then these become human shields that Hamas uses, and they will parade them on CNN cameras for the world to see, and then Israel will be condemned. We have no way of knowing where the food or the water or any of the relief is going, because Gaza is Hamas. Hamas is Gaza.
Yep.
These people, the Palestinians, need to be released out of the southern border at Rafah, at Egypt. They need to be released, and they need to be sheltered in an Arab country until this conflict is over. That's real humanitarian relief. And then we can send water, food assistance to these 2 million Palestinians wherever they go. But we are effectively resupplying Hamas. When we send trucks in, when we send trucks that won't be investigated, that won't be searched, they aren't going to be searched. So when these trucks go in, they'll probably have munitions, armaments, supplies, and even the trucks will be used against the Israeli Defense Forces. So the absolute wrong measures are being taken by the Biden administration right now. And that's why those of us who are believers in the United States, we have to pray. We have to pray and ask the Lord that our government would come into alignment with God's word and bless Israel stop the cursing that we're currently doing in the United States.
That's exactly right, Michelle, and that's very well spoken. Iran is behind all of this. They're the puppet master. Hamas, Hezbollah, all of those, they're just proxies for Iran. Now, they're enriching uranium, and they're doing it, and they're masters. I mean, the Iranians are masters at deceiving people around them. And the International Atomic Energy Agency has tried to keep tabs on the progress the Iranians are making in enriching uranium, and they've done a terrible job. The Iranians have taken the cameras out, they have defied them. And at last report, the Iranians are enriching uranium at 80%, which is almost weapons grade. I read a report on Sunday that said that they could be 3 to 4 weeks away from getting fissile material that basically make a dirty bomb, and they have a hypersonic missile that can reach Israel in 400 seconds. So what is your perspective? My perspective is at some point in time, Israel has to preemptively strike Iran. I don't know how they cannot take care of that. They struck Iraq, they struck Syria from plutonium plant there. And so do you think at some point in time that Israel has to preemptively strike Iran, or what do you think is going to happen?
Well, unfortunately, the Obama administration stopped Israel from a preemptive strike. We could have dealt with this a long time ago because remember, it must have been about 8-9 years ago, the Ayatollah of Iran wrote a book and it said, we will annihilate Israel in 25 years. If history has taught us anything, it's when a madman speaks, you listen.
That's right.